Carl Jung. When you stop being available, everything changes. Sometimes you have to disappear to be truly seen. Carl Jung understood that the moment you stop making yourself endlessly available, you create space for respect, balance, and transformation to enter your life. In this video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore why setting boundaries can shift not only how others treat you, but also how you honor your own soul. As you listen, I invite you to reflect. Where in your life are you giving too much of yourself away? Comment below with your thoughts, and let's begin this journey together toward personal growth and lasting happiness. 1. The power of withdrawal and silence. Withdrawal and silence hold a hidden strength that most people overlook. Yet Jung understood they are not escapes, but returns. Not voids, but sacred spaces where the soul breathes and spirituality deepens. In a noisy world that demands constant availability, stepping back is an act of courage, because silence is not empty, it is alive with truth, clarity, and spiritual awakening. When you withdraw, you free yourself from the marketplace of competing voices that try to sell you identities, desires, and dreams that are not your own. And as the noise fades, you discover how much of what you carried was never yours to begin with. Silence then becomes the crucible where illusions burn away and authenticity rises, where your unconscious whispers forgotten insights and hidden wisdom that the noise had drowned. This is why sages, mystics, and visionaries always sought solitude before their awakenings. For it is in stillness that the soul speaks, and in silence that strength is reborn. Yet modern life resists withdrawal, teaching us to measure worth by accessibility and constant response. But Jung's insight reveals the opposite. When you stop being endlessly available, you reclaim your power and redirect your scattered energy back into wholeness. At first, others may resist your silence, but soon they sense the quiet strength it radiates. For silence is not absence, but presence, not selfishness, but restoration. From this inner sanctuary, you begin to see relationships with new clarity, distinguishing those that uplift your soul from those that drain it. And you learn to make choices rooted in purpose rather than pressure. Silence heals in ways words cannot. And through withdrawal, you find yourself no longer enslaved by the expectations of others, but guided by the deeper rhythm of your true nature. To embrace this is to step into the essence of spiritual awakening, living from the inside out, carrying an energy that no noise can disrupt, and a wisdom that no distraction can steal. Comment below. I embrace the power of silence if you're ready to protect your energy and reclaim your inner strength. 2. You are controlled by your own predictability. You are controlled by your own predictability because when your actions, thoughts, and responses become too easy to anticipate, you unconsciously give others the power to manage you. Predictability may feel safe, but it quietly strips away your freedom, individuality, and value. If people know you will always agree, always show up, and always give without limits, they stop appreciating your time and presence. Jung reminded us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Yet repeating the same patterns keeps you stuck in who you have been, not who you are meant to become. In daily life, this shows up in small ways, saying yes out of fear of disappointing others, following routines without question, or staying silent when your truth should be spoken. These choices seem harmless, but together, They form the invisible bars of a prison. Spirituality teaches that true spiritual development begins when you break free from this cycle and dare to live with intention rather than habit. The moment you stop being endlessly available, you invite others to value you more deeply, and you begin to value yourself in ways you may never have before. Jung's concept of individuation reveals that transformation requires stepping outside of roles and expectations that no longer serve you. Predictability makes you easy to control, but unpredictability grounded in self-awareness makes you powerful. By withdrawing where you once overextended, you reclaim energy to nourish your soul and open space for creativity, connection, and awakening. In today's world of constant demands and digital noise, this act of stepping back is not selfish, but sacred. When you learn to protect your time and honor your inner rhythms, you stop being a servant to others' expectations and become the guide of your own destiny. The lesson is simple yet profound. Do not let predictability become your cage. Instead, use it as a mirror to see where you have been living unconsciously and then choose differently. Say no with courage, guard your energy with love, and embrace the discomfort of change as the gateway to freedom. Through this practice, you shift from being taken for granted to being truly valued, from being controlled by old patterns to living with conscious purpose. This is the essence of spirituality and spiritual development, the journey of becoming untamed, awake, and fully alive. 3. Persona and self-abandonment. Carl Jung explained that the persona is the mask we wear to function in society. But when this mask takes over, we begin to live for validation rather than truth. The danger lies in self-abandonment, in saying yes when our spirit longs to say no, in smiling when our soul is heavy, in giving ourselves away until nothing remains but a reflection of what others want us to be. Each act of self-betrayal may appear small, yet together they create a life where the authentic self is silenced, and the cost of always being available is becoming invisible to yourself. The irony is that constant availability does not earn respect. It breeds disregard. People often value you less when you erase your own boundaries, and in the pursuit of pleasing everyone, you end up unseen and unfulfilled. Jung warned that confusing persona with self is one of the deepest dangers of the psyche, because it leaves you trapped in roles, disconnected from the soul. To reclaim your power, you must recognize that saying no is not rejection, but self-respect. And silence is not weakness, but intelligence of the spirit. When you stop being endlessly available, the world reacts. Some will accuse you of being distant or selfish, but this resistance only reveals how much they depended on your self-abandonment. In truth, the shift is a spiritual awakening. You are choosing to honor your inner voice and to preserve your life force. The people who truly value you will meet you at this higher standard, while those who thrived on your compliance will fade away, making space for relationships rooted in respect. Every step away from self-abandonment is a step toward freedom. By drawing boundaries, you guard your energy. By refusing to betray yourself, you honor your destiny. As Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But this is also the beginning of transformation. When you stop offering yourself to everything and everyone, you finally become available for what matters most your own authentic life. 4. Psychological energy and unconscious standards. Psychological energy is more than physical vitality. It is the inner current that fuels your creativity, focus, and capacity for transformation. Much of this energy, however, becomes trapped in unconscious standards, hidden rules inherited from family, culture, or society that quietly dictate your behavior. Carl Jung warned that until you bring these unconscious forces to light, they will control your life and drain your strength. When you strive to live up to ideals that are not authentically yours, you scatter energy on illusions instead of channeling it toward growth and fulfillment. This is why spiritual awakening is not just an abstract idea, but a necessary act of reclaiming your own energy. Unconscious standards operate like invisible scripts that keep you running on autopilot. You may feel compelled to seek validation, success, or love according to measures you never chose, leaving you exhausted and unfulfilled. In today's world of constant comparison, especially on social media, these hidden standards are amplified, convincing you that worth is measured by appearances. When your psychological energy is invested in maintaining these masks, you abandon your authentic self. Jung called individuation the path of breaking free from such scripts, and spirituality provides the wisdom to discern what truly serves your soul from what only feeds illusion. This energy is also tied to your emotional life. Suppressed anger, grief, or fear does not vanish. It remains locked in the unconscious, consuming vitality until it bursts out as anxiety, depression, or sudden reactions. Jung likened the psyche to a pressure system where unacknowledged emotions eventually erupt. By bringing awareness and compassion to these hidden parts, you free the bound energy and transform it into clarity, resilience, and creativity. This process is not only psychological, but deeply spiritual. For every act of awareness is a step toward wholeness. Recognizing the sacred value of psychological energy changes how you move through life. You learn that saying no to draining people or false expectations is not selfish, but necessary for your spiritual growth. You stop being available to what depletes you and begin conserving energy for what nurtures your path. Spirituality teaches that awakening is not about reaching an ideal state, but about reclaiming what was always yours, the power to live authentically. When you align your energy with your truth, you stop existing as a prisoner of unconscious scripts and become the conscious author of your destiny. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to our channel and join a community committed to conscious living and inner clarity. Here, we explore the unseen forces that shape our energy and reclaim the power we unknowingly give away. Remember, your energy is sacred. Use it wisely. 5. The trap of darkness, projection, and silent manipulation. Carl Jung described the trap of darkness not as something external, but as the hidden forces within us that appear through projection and silent manipulation. Projection happens when we unconsciously push the qualities we deny in ourselves onto others, creating a distorted mirror that blinds us from facing our own shadow. You may find yourself labeling someone as selfish, controlling, or dishonest, when in truth, those unresolved traits lie within you, waiting to be acknowledged. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this truth is at the heart of spirituality. because real spiritual development begins the moment you stop blaming others and take responsibility for your inner world. Silent manipulation deepens this trap. It is the art of influencing without words, where power is gained not by shouting, but by silence, withdrawal, or calculated gestures that quietly shape your behavior. You see it in workplaces when colleagues undermine confidence through exclusion, or in relationships where affection is withheld to control emotions. These methods are invisible chains that make you question your worth until you unconsciously surrender your power. Jung emphasized that the danger does not lie only in the manipulator, but in our own unconscious participation, because the shadow we ignore is the very entry point through which others control us. Spiritual awakening calls you to break free from this cycle by observing your triggers and recognizing projection for what it is: a lesson, not a punishment. When resentment, jealousy, or anger rises, ask yourself what part of your hidden self is being revealed. Owning your shadow does not weaken you. It disarms those who feed on your unawareness. Silent manipulators lose their hold over those who see clearly through subtle games of guilt and fear. And every confrontation with this darkness becomes an opportunity to grow in clarity, strength, and compassion. The real work of spirituality is not resisting the shadow, but integrating it, because what you resist will always persist. By making the unconscious conscious, you reclaim your freedom and stand in authenticity rather than illusion. In that moment, projection loses its power, manipulation loses its grip, and you rise above the trap of darkness. Spiritual development then becomes the art of transforming hidden wounds into wisdom, guiding you closer to wholeness and to the light that was always within. 6. The development of the comfort game when you become unavailable. When you stop making yourself constantly available, you send a powerful message that your time and energy are not to be taken for granted. Carl Jung reminded us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And stepping back from constant accessibility is part of that journey. By no longer being everyone's comfort zone, you reclaim your sovereignty, honor your inner life, and allow spiritual wisdom to guide you toward balance and self-respect. This act is not about selfishness, but about recognizing your worth and teaching others how to value your presence. The moment you withdraw, people notice the change. Some will resist, trying to pull you back into old patterns, while others will rise to respect your new boundaries. Jung's insight shows that absence creates value when your presence is no longer guaranteed. It becomes a rare and meaningful gift. True intelligence lies not only in knowing when to say yes, but in having the courage to say no. Spiritual awakening begins when you choose conscious giving instead of endless sacrifice, and your silence and distance speak louder than constant availability ever could. In this shift, you also confront the unconscious parts of yourself that once craved validation by always being needed. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. By pulling back, you begin to see the fears hidden behind your availability, the fear of rejection, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of not being enough. As you bring these patterns into awareness, you step into a higher intelligence that frees you from living as a prisoner of others' demands. With space reclaimed, your energy aligns with deeper purpose. Creativity expands, clarity emerges, and the universe begins to mirror the standard you set for yourself. When you stop offering your presence cheaply, life offers you connections and opportunities that truly resonate with your spirit. You are no longer bound by the comfort game of others. You are guided by spiritual wisdom, self-respect, and inner authenticity. And it is here that you discover the truth. The day you stop being constantly available is the day everything in your life begins to change. 7. Silence is a kind of conscious power. Silence is not emptiness, but conscious power, the strength to withdraw from the noise of the world and listen to the truth within. Carl Jung reminded us that who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And it is in silence that awakening begins. When you stop being endlessly available to everyone and everything, you no longer abandon yourself. You reclaim your energy, your clarity, and your soul. In spirituality, silence is not avoidance, but transformation. It is the soil where seeds of growth take root, the space where divine wisdom speaks, and the moment when spiritual awakening rises without interruption. In modern life, silence becomes resistance against distraction, a way to show that your time and energy have value. To say no, to pause, to choose stillness over reaction is not selfishness. It is intelligence and spiritual wisdom. When you step back from constant availability, people begin to meet you with respect instead of entitlement, because what is scarce becomes precious. Silence reshapes how others see you, but more importantly, it reshapes how you see yourself. In quiet reflection, you integrate your shadows, strengthen your individuality, and remember that your worth is not tied to how much you give, but to how true you remain to yourself. Silence is active strength, the discipline to observe without reacting, to heal without explaining, and to grow without demanding validation. It is the sacred language of the soul, a reminder that turning away from the world's noise is the first step to hearing the deeper call of your own spirit. In silence, you discover that your greatest availability must be to your own authenticity, and in that truth, everything changes. If this message resonates with your soul, comment below. I embrace the power of conscious silence. I choose peace over reaction. Your words might inspire someone else on their journey to inner strength. 8. The price of silence and choosing yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living." And that is the hidden price of silence, not emptiness, but the reclaiming of energy, dignity, and power. When you stop being endlessly available to others, you create space for spiritual development and discover that silence is not weakness, but strength, a shield that guards your soul in a world that constantly demands your attention. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is the root of spirituality and spiritual awakening, reminding you that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice, but by how deeply you honor your own needs. To live always in yes is to abandon yourself and conform to the expectations of others. But to embrace silence is to step into individuation, the Jungian path of integrating shadows and becoming whole. In modern life, this may look like turning off your phone when the world demands replies, walking away from relationships that suffocate your spirit, or declining commitments that rob you of peace. Each quiet refusal is a declaration that your soul matters, your peace matters, and your spiritual development matters. The cost of silence is losing shallow validation and pleasing others, but the reward is gaining depth, clarity, and courage to stand in truth. Silence teaches more than words. Withdrawal from noise becomes wisdom, and choosing yourself becomes the highest form of love. It is here that you discover the paradox. When you stop being available to everyone, you finally become available to the life that was meant for you. 9. Rebirth from loneliness and basic choices. Loneliness, as Carl Jung reminds us, is not a curse, but a passage into rebirth, a moment where silence becomes the soil for awakening. When you stop being constantly available and withdraw from the demands of others, you begin to hear the intelligence of your own soul. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. It is in solitude that this awakening unfolds, when you no longer seek validation in noise, but honor the spiritual wisdom within. Stepping back may disturb those who relied on your presence, but this discomfort is proof that change is taking place. The instant you stop offering unlimited access to your energy, you reclaim your strength. Boundaries are not barriers. They are sacred doorways to clarity. Each no becomes a yes to authenticity. Each pause a declaration of self-respect. By making this simple choice, you stop living reactively and begin to live intentionally, guided by your deeper intelligence. This transformation is not about abandoning others, but about meeting yourself. Jung's teaching on individuation shows that loneliness is necessary, for only in silence can you confront the shadows you once escaped. By facing emptiness, you find wholeness. By embracing solitude, you discover freedom. Modern life glorifies constant connection, yet true spirituality blossoms when you dare to step back, when you choose selective presence over endless giving. In this space, fear of abandonment dissolves, because you learn to stand anchored in your own presence. As Jung said, loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. When you honor your authentic needs, communication with yourself deepens and radiates outward. Your relationships become healthier, your choices clearer, and your energy more magnetic. Rebirth comes from choosing yourself, from embracing solitude as a teacher, and from recognizing that transformation begins the moment you stop being endlessly available and finally become available to your own soul. 10. Reset your energy levels and set boundaries. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that truth unfolds the moment you reset your energy and set boundaries. When you are always available, you quietly teach others that your time and spirit hold little value, and eventually you begin to believe it yourself. Boundaries are not selfish walls, but sacred lines of self-respect, reminders that your inner life is worth protecting, and that your soul requires silence, rest, and reflection to thrive. Think of how you charge your phone each night. You would never expect it to run on an empty battery, yet you often demand this of yourself. Resetting your energy means plugging back into the source of life through prayer, meditation, or stillness, aligning with the whisper of your soul rather than the noise of the world. Every no to what drains you becomes a yes to your peace, clarity, and authenticity. And in that choice, your presence grows more powerful and magnetic. Boundaries also teach others how to value you. When you give selectively, your yes carries depth instead of obligation. Your energy nourishes rather than depletes, and your spirit shines without resentment. In the journey of spirituality and spiritual awakening, these limits act not as barriers, but as guardians of your purpose, creating space for growth, truth, and higher awareness. To reset your energy is to honor yourself, to reclaim your rhythm, and to awaken to a life that flows from the wisdom of your soul. And so, as Carl Jung reminds us, the moment you stop making yourself endlessly available, you discover the power of presence, boundaries, and self-respect. This simple shift can transform not only how others treat you, but also how you see yourself. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself like this video. Share it with those who may need the reminder, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos filled with insight and inspiration.